It is a grand experiment in one of the grandest expanses of wilderness in the world. The return of wolves to Yellowstone National Park, a gamble that comes with uncertainty and bitter controversy. Strangers in a strange land, the wolves set about finding their way and reclaiming the role of top dog with a vengeance. One pack becomes a precision killing machine. But will the infamous Druid Peek Pack become victims of their own success? It's a family saga, full of illicit romance, fatherly fury, sibling rivalry, and wolf warfare.
Lots of blood.
Wolves represent and symbolize wildness. And one thing about wolves that draws a lot of attention is if you've ever seen their eyes. They actually don't look at you, they look through you.
When winter comes to Yellowstone National Park, it does not come gently. It is a time when most animals struggle simply to survive. But it is also a time when one animal truly comes into its own: the gray wolf. In driving snow, a pack of wolves closes in on an elk herd. Canis lupus has been nipping at the elk's heels for hundreds of thousands of years, and nature has made sure that predator and prey are well matched. But in any elk herd, especially in winter, there are the weak and the old, and the wolves inexorably close in. It is a hard-won meal for the pack, but it is one that they will not be allowed to enjoy in peace. An unlikely and belated cavalry charges in. Bison, too, fall prey to the wolf, but sometimes they turn the tables. This primeval conflict is no less astonishing because it once disappeared entirely from the American West. Both wolf and bison faced oblivion. Bison, exterminated by the millions, nearly disappeared. Only a few dozen remained in Yellowstone at the turn of the century. The wolf, treated as vermin by ranchers and park officials alike, was hunted, poisoned, and trapped. By the 1930s, the last Yellowstone wolf was dead. Then, in 1995, the park took an audacious and controversial step. It imported wolves from the Canadian wilderness with the intention of releasing the animals into the park.
Right here, Doug. We got two here.
The wolves were kept in pens for 10 weeks to get them used to the place. From the start, park biologists had their hands full. The wolves were not at all fond of human company, and getting radio collars onto the younger wolves proved challenging. And while the wolves were giving them the runaround, the park biologists knew the world watched their every move.
Damn it. Right here, Doug. Right here.
If the wolves simply left the park and started preying on livestock instead of wildlife, the program was doomed.
All right, we got it. Hang on right there. Okay. Nice job, Ben.
As the date of the releases approached, park biologists like Doug Smith really had no idea what would happen on the momentous day that the doors to the pens would be opened.
One's out. There's two. Two are out. We got two out.
Many people were tearful. The emotional burden that was lifted off of people's shoulders was tremendous. Now, what was going to happen? Would this take? Would the wolves go back to Canada? What are they going to do?
No one knew whether the wolves would thrive, starve, or leave. Theoretically, Yellowstone represented ideal wolf turf. The plan called for releasing packs in various parts of the elk-rich northeastern corner of the park. For biologist Doug Smith, head of Yellowstone's Wolf Recovery Program, the releases marked the beginning of an epic 7-year scientific adventure.
I've been interested in wolves since I was a small boy. I never dreamed that I would be in the position that I am today. And for me, this truly is a labor of love. I love going to work every day. I love trying to figure out what these animals are doing, their stories, their interactions with the other animals in Yellowstone is a wonderful opportunity that challenges me in every way.
To keep track of the wolves, Doug's team tries to keep radio collars on about a third of the animals. That means replacing collars when batteries run out.
Okay, we got one. Okay, we'll watch him. There's one coming behind you. Okay,
After experimenting with trapping the wolves, Doug has found that darting them from a helicopter seems to be the least traumatic way to handle them.
okay, we'll stay on this one. Okay, we're still with this first one.
I'm gonna try not to get bit here.
While the wolf is sedated, Doug gives it a thorough exam before replacing the collar.
27.9.
27.9.
Okay, old boy. 2.
The radio collars have offered him an extraordinarily intimate glimpse into the secret lives of wolves.
I think it's good we got him on insight.
The wolves he's come to know best. A pack released in the shadow of Druid Peak in 1996. The Druid Peek Pack initially seemed to adjust well to Yellowstone, but more than a year later, they wandered out of the park, and their alpha male was shot. The leadership of the 7-member pack fell to the alpha female, number 40. She was beautiful and violent. A coyote at her carcass was asking for a death sentence.
The first alpha female was wolf number 40. She was very aggressive, and she ruled with an iron fist.
Under number 40, the Druids developed a reputation for killing wolves from neighboring packs, as well as coyotes. But then a dark, handsome stranger entered the picture, number 21. A young male from a rival pack, 21 decided to take a huge gamble and set about courting the deadly alpha female of the Druid Peek Pack. In a remarkable cat-and-mouse drama, he managed to win over the Iron Lady and became the alpha male of the pack. Someone else in the Druid Pack had an eye for the stranger, the Iron Lady's dark sister, number 42. Known as the Cinderella Wolf, number 42 was in constant trouble with her alpha sister. She could never quite be submissive enough to please the Iron Lady. She suffered her sister's beatings and sometimes seemed ready to leave the pack. Until one momentous night. The next morning dawned on a battered and mauled iron lady lying in a ditch by the road. Despite the park biologist's best efforts, she would die before the day was out. Killed, the biologists think, by the Cinderella wolf and her offspring. And then something remarkable happened. The once cringing Cinderella took command. She took her pups to the Iron Lady's den, and the pack would raise both sisters' litters, along with a third. She was now the alpha female, and she also took the Iron Lady's mate as her own. Under their leadership, the Druid Pack flourished. They set about bringing up all 3 litters of pups. It was a tall order, 21 new mouths to feed. The Druids took turns babysitting and feeding the pups. Even when nearly full grown, the pups did not lose their appetite for fun and mischief. All but one of the pups would reach adulthood, a remarkable feat on the part of the wolves, and a vivid testimonial to the notion that these animals belonged in Yellowstone.
I didn't think that 20 out of 21 pups were going to survive. Yellowstone was the ideal place for wolves to be, and they weren't there, and we reintroduced them, and conditions were such that they could have 3 litters of pups in one pack, and they could have 20 of 21 of those pups survive.
Eventually, the Druid Peek Pack grew to an astonishing 37 members, perhaps the largest ever observed. With so many members, the Druids put their neighbors on notice. They needed more territory, and their howling left no doubt that they had the sheer wolf power to take it by force.
The first thing that happened when the Druid Peek Pack grew was they had to get more territory. They had to take over more land. Unfortunately, all the land in the northern part of Yellowstone was occupied by other wolves. So they had to take it aggressively from the nearest pack.
In the no man's land between the Druids' territory and their neighbors, Doug and his team would find grim evidence of the fierceness of the border skirmishes.
Yeah, that's pretty big. Lots of blood.
Territorial skirmishes between wolf packs can be ferocious. In fact, they can be so bad that wolves can die in these boundary skirmishes about who's going to control the different areas of the park. But this area right here is a major zone of tension between these two packs. Their territorial boundaries pretty much abut here, and 3 wolves have died in 3 years right along this boundary.
The Druids almost certainly killed this wolf in the border wars. Needing more prey, meaning more land, the Druids made inroads into their neighbors' territories, even pushing them out of the park. But being at the top of the heap in an extended family is never easy. And today, the Druids' alpha pair are graying. The once black Cinderella sister and her dark, handsome stranger are entering their twilight years.
I feel a lot of kinship with 42 and 21 because I'm watching them gray and I'm starting to gray along with them. So all this stuff pulls you in a lot of different ways, so I'm bonding with the study subjects.
Now 7 years old, 42 and 21 have outlasted most of their contemporaries, but they're not going to be allowed to enjoy their golden years in peace. Trouble comes in the shape of number 113, a strapping young male from a rival pack.
The unique thing about 113 is he's so big. And how we referred to him was that big male wolf.
In the prime of his life, number 113 has one thing on his mind: a mate. But Druid turf is a dangerous place to come courting. Abruptly, big number 113 has second thoughts about his intrusion, and 21, the old man of the Druids, decides to hurry him along. Having given the intruder notice, number 21 relents, for now. But old 21's adolescent daughters have other ideas. And the big Don Juan senses he might find some admirers here. She's clearly intrigued. But meetings between wolves of different packs are often fraught with tension and mortal danger.
These behaviors are quite ritualized. The animal stands very stiffly, facing the oncoming wolves. It almost appears as if the wolf is highly nervous and moving in a very kind of mechanical way, probably trying not to do anything wrong, because the slightest mistake could mean death for that wolf, and that wolf knows that.
Clearly, these young Druid ladies are not in a murderous mood. But their father is. Once again, the old man sees the would-be Casanova off the property. Big number 113 is trouble, and he's bound to be back. A daughter asks for and receives her father's permission to return to the fold. And the Druids still howl as one for the moment. Winter is coming to the Lamar Valley, the Druids' spectacular home. The members of the pack are almost constantly hungry. They've had good hunting, but there are just too many of them. Nearby, an injured elk calf takes refuge in a frigid stream. The wolves are tantalized by such a seemingly easy meal. But they're not at all sure it's worth a drenching. Eventually, the Druids go off in search of more cooperative meals. But they are doing the calf no favor. It is doomed. Yellowstone in winter can be unmerciful in the extreme. By the park's famed hot springs, even the massive, shaggy bison take refuge from the cold. Temperatures can drop to 50 below. The Druids hardly seem to notice the cold. Today, Old 21 and 42 are rallying the troops. It's time the pack got down to the business of hunting. This is prime wolf real estate, full of elk, a favorite prey. And the Druids use the local geography to their advantage.
Wolves, one of the most important ways they hunt is by getting a good look at their prey. So what the Druid Peek Pack likes to do is use Lamar Valley and the wide open space there to get the elk herds moving. And in that way, they can examine the elk. 21, the alpha male of the Druid Peek Pack, is oftentimes the leader of the hunt. He's the oldest, most experienced, arguably the wisest wolf in the pack, and so he understands what elk can be pursued. But he might not necessarily be the most aggressive wolf in the hunts. He allows some of those younger wolves and their enthusiasm come forward to take care of the initial stages of the hunt, and he'll move in towards the end.
With so many members, the Druids can employ a shotgun tactic, fanning out after many parts of the herd. They follow their own targets, always keeping an eye out for the fellow Druid on the heels of an easier mark. Like an aging quarterback, 21 directs the attack, but he's clearly lost a step or two on the youngsters. Once they have a faltering elk in their sights, all it takes is a single misstep. The takedown is the most dangerous moment for the wolves. A frightened, thrashing elk can easily deal a fatal blow to a wolf with its sharp hooves. But the Druids have so many experienced hunters that the prey is simply overwhelmed. The pack's size means that the carcass will be quickly stripped of every scrap. The Druids are known to disappoint scavengers, and noisy ravens wait in vain for their turn at the feast. "42, once a groveling Cinderella wolf, now demands elaborate shows of submission from her daughters." The scavenger who has suffered most from the return of the wolf is its cousin, the coyote. Its numbers, through competition for food and through outright assassination, have fallen by half in the Lamar Valley. The Druids were infamous for killing coyotes during the Iron Lady's reign. But this coyote's lucky. The wolf chasing him is an overgrown pup in search of a playmate, however reluctant. In body language, the two canines have enough in common to understand that this is not serious business. The Druid's pups, at 10 months old, are now nearly fully grown. But their puppyish curiosity and appetite for play are still in full force. Play is also a way for young wolves to figure out where they stand dominance-wise in a sometimes slippery hierarchy. But while puppyhood is still fun and games, forces are at work that make adolescence brutal. The pack has reached a critical mass. It can no longer feed everyone. It's time the yearlings started striking out on their own. And the rest of the pack is not gentle in getting the message across. The outcast will have to make his own way in the unforgiving wilderness that is Yellowstone. If he's lucky, he'll find a young female with whom to start his own pack. If he's not lucky, he may be killed by a rival pack or starve. In the long slant of light that marks late afternoon in Yellowstone, one of Old 21's daughters grows restless, and with good reason. Her suitor awaits. It's 1:13, back again, with hormones raging. In this moment, the sketchy outlines of a new pack begin to take shape. And as day gives way to night, the call of that new pack begins to change the outlines of the old pack. Under cover of night, another Druid female approaches the big Don Juan. And then an adolescent male appears. The young group seems content, but they're still on Druid territory. Morning finds Old 21 leading the remaining Druids on border patrol. This is not a good time for youthful indiscretions. Mating on Druid territory is asking for trouble. Mother and father suspect nothing as yet, but the members of the new gang finally spot them and begin to head out. The Druid enforcers appear over a ridge. And the Don Juan wolf and his friends take no chances. They head for no man's land picking up yet another Druid recruit or two on the way out of the valley. Caught between the contentious borders of the Druids and neighboring packs, a young gang of 6 head south, further into the heart of the park to try their fortunes there. The Druids seem to bid them good riddance. Doug and his team are also headed deep into the backwoods of the park, far off the beaten path. Out here, bison rather than elk make up the prey population, and bison are some of the most intimidating prey in the world. In a driving blizzard, Doug and the team try to locate a group of researchers. They have volunteered to do what few sane humans would: spend a few late winter weeks in remotest Yellowstone, living in an ice cave with grizzlies and bison for companionship. This is what it takes to follow the wolves of the interior. After nearly getting lost in whiteout conditions, Doug and his team gratefully make themselves at home in the snow cave of intrepid doctoral student Dan McNulty. Even among the biologists, Dan's tenacity is amazing.
When the weather goes south, you dig in and you just weather it, you know.
And you can do it year after year, every year?
I'm addicted to it. I'm absolutely addicted to it. If I could do this for more than 2 weeks every year, I would.
Dan's main home up here is a snow cave. But in a pinch, he and his fellow researchers can put up an igloo in a few hours in order to follow the wolves. It's certainly not the coziest laboratory in the world, but if your scientific passion is wolves, it doesn't get any better than this.
Beautiful out.
It is. Storm subsiding some.
When the storm lets up, Dan takes Doug for a tour of the research area.
How do you like living back here for 2 weeks every year on an observation point that's high above the valley, yet swarming with grizzly bears?
Being up on this hilltop was kind of like being on an island surrounded with sort of sharks circling in the waters. You know, you could see their fins. You knew they wouldn't really climb up onto the island, but frankly, I'm not really too concerned about it. I have a healthy respect for bears, and I feel like if we keep a safe and clean camp and, you know, keep everything together in an orderly fashion, we could coexist with bears and do research and not have any problems at all.
This is a pretty dramatic way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time, people who do this are worried about day-to-day survival.
And that's why I like to do it, because it's always been a bit of a dream of mine of combining, you know, backcountry living with science.
Dan has been videotaping the wolves of the Molly's pack. Driven out from elk-rich territory by the Druids, the Mollies have had to hunt bison, massive, sturdy icons of the old American West.
They're here hunting this formidable prey, arguably the most formidable of all prey for wolves.
Definitely.
And you're watching it.
Yesterday morning, what we think is the breeding female got up and just walked straight towards a herd of bison with the rest of the pack following, and it was there that the kill was made. The ability of wolves to kill bison is wholly dependent upon the behavior of the bison and where the bison are foraging, how many of them are foraging together, because they cooperate with one another in defending themselves against wolves. And so if you're in an area with a lot of other bison, you're a lot better off in terms of protecting yourselves against wolves. But on the other hand, you have to deal with that many more competitors for a limited forage supply. So they sort of have this trade-off to make between protecting themselves against wolves and then also getting enough to eat.
One of the most extraordinary things that Dan has observed is the intricate way that predator and prey communicate with each other. Somehow, evolution has granted elk a way to advertise their strength and fitness to wolves, and it has also granted wolves the uncanny ability to know when the elk are lying.
The animal was initially trotting and stotting two gaits that are fairly energy intensive and actually slower than an outright gallop. It's trying to convince the wolves, don't chase me because I can outrun you. Think how much faster I can run if I actually sped up to a gallop. And yet in that particular instance, the wolves continued to press that elk, and by doing so, they actually found out that that animal wasn't as vigorous as perhaps that animal was trying to convince the wolves it was, because it eventually switched gears into a gallop when those wolves started to get too close, and sure enough, the wolves ended up killing it.
If running slowly in the face of a wolf pack seems suicidal, consider this. If an animal actually refuses to run at all, the biologist found, it will probably survive. In this war of nerves, a cornered elk can be as dangerous to a wolf as the wolves are to it.
Wolves can be killed by their prey, and we've had 6 wolves die in Yellowstone because of their prey. 5 by elk, 1 by a moose. So wolves have to be very, very careful at what they kill.
Standoffs like these can go on for hours. If the elk can resist the urge to make a break for it, the wolves will often give up. In this case, the beleaguered bull elk was saved by some passing bison. The wolves could not resist the impulse to chase the already running animals. In spectacular fashion, a Yellowstone winter gives way, slowly, to spring. The winter has culled the weak and the old. Only the fittest have survived.
One thing we're trying to do here in Yellowstone.
Today, Doug is out with his mentors David Meach and Rolf Peterson, both legends in the wolf business. They're in search of a bison carcass that was spotted by plane.
Maybe even longer than that. Well, I didn't see this big mud hole before. That looks like...
Doug and his team meticulously document every wolf kill they find and conduct a sort of forensic investigation at the scene of each so-called crime.
Wow, that's got an extra tooth.
Yeah, look at
Right
that.
there.
Right? Yeah.
An impacted and infected tooth might have been this animal's downfall. The biologists think the wolves may actually be able to sniff out the presence of a brutal toothache.
Oh, yeah. Now that stuff smells, actually.
Ah, and if wolves can detect abnormalities by smell, they could sure smell that, couldn't they?
But it may not have been the toothache that did this bison in. The researchers saw one of its bones apart to see the condition of the marrow.
Oh, look at that.
Wow.
Wow.
Look at that. There's no fat in there, whatever.
Oh, geez, yeah.
I mean, it's water.
yeah.
It's water.
No fat in the marrow means the animal was starving.
You know, this animal would have been dead even if the wolves hadn't killed it. It just couldn't have gone anywhere.
Yeah. Wolves did it a favor.
Bison must step carefully as winter yields to spring. These massive animals don't tread lightly on melting ice. And once in the water, there is no escape. Scavengers on the wing are often the first to discover a carcass. These coyotes wouldn't mind taking part in the feast, but they'll have to sort out who's on top before they can make an attempt on the soggy carcass. This potential delicacy poses a bit of a dilemma. Well, if he can't have some, no one else can. His cowering posture is actually an emphatic back off in coyote speak. The coyote decides a bolder approach is called for, but soon he's got that sinking feeling again. This is clearly not one of his better days. Spring in Yellowstone is a fickle thing. In the Lamar Valley, you can blink and it's winter again. A mother grizzly and her cub have emerged from their winter den, only to be greeted by driving snow and something more ominous: druids. There is no love lost between Yellowstone's top predators. Wolves have been known to kill bear cubs, and grizzlies to kill wolf pups. But a frantic mother bear is nothing to toy with. She could break a wolf's back with a single swipe of her paw, but she can't risk being led more than a few yards from her cub. Finally, the Druids lose interest in bear baiting, and the mother and cub go their own way, unharmed. Spring finally drives off winter for good in sun-drenched Yellowstone. The Lamar Valley is hardly recognizable in its green velvet finery. The Druids have made it through the winter in fine form. Old 21 and 42 still at the helm. At this time of year, the group will often split up, as it doesn't take a massive hunt to bring down what they're after: elk calves. The river and its many visitors are a magnet to the Druids. Their presence draws the ire of a nearby mother elk. This scenario is at the heart of one of the controversies surrounding the reintroduction of wolves to Yellowstone. Elk numbers seem to be holding steady, while at the same time, fewer calves seem to be surviving to adulthood. Local sportsmen who can legally hunt elk who stray from the park don't want competition from wolves. But wolves are hardly the only hunters of elk calves. In fact, this angry mother has already lost her newborn to a grizzly.
There may be competition between wolves and grizzly bears for elk calves. But it's interesting because one day in Lamar Valley this spring, our team observed 2 elk calves killed by wolves, 2 killed by grizzly bears, and 2 killed by coyotes. Black bears, cougars, eagles also take elk calves. So one of the next studies that we're trying to initiate is understanding predation on elk calves.
The calves are fleet and agile even at this young age. But the deceptively lumbering grizzly can reach a top speed of 30 miles an hour, about the same speed as her prey. And the grizzly has her own little one to feed. The days are growing longer, setting the stage for an important debut among the Druids. Doug and his team have been keeping tabs on the wolves from a distance. Only now do they go in search of the Druid's den, knowing it will be empty. The researchers have found that different females have distinctly different tastes in den sites. Some pick caves, some dig under tree root systems, some even take over beaver dams.
Den sites are treasures in terms of a researcher's agenda. You get a view into the wolf's world. You know, it's just like going to your house after you've moved out.
Okay. Oh yeah, it goes back a ways.
Can you see the main chamber at the end?
I can.
The Druid's mother, perhaps the most experienced and successful in the park, clearly values comfort and security.
It's a narrow entryway with a big chamber at the end. It might go at least 16 feet. An entrance that probably a grizzly bear couldn't get down, but a chamber that was pretty roomy and comfortable.
The Druids themselves are now long gone, hanging out at what's called a rendezvous site. Their 2-month-old pups, happy to be out of the confines of the den, stay here, while most of the pack hunts. There are plenty of new sights and smells to investigate, and an attentive babysitter nearby to make sure they don't stray. For the next few months, the rendezvous site will be the focal point of the wolves' lives. In summer, the adults often go their separate ways to forage for prey, but return to the rendezvous site to feed the pups. Somewhere out there, the Druid pups might have cousins. Doug has been anxious to find out what happened to the big Don Juan who walked off with several of the Druid's adolescent daughters. The Don Juan, number 113, is collared, but his radio transmitter works only occasionally. But one day, at the edge of Druid territory, another set of pups wanders into Doug's sights. And who's this coming to feed them but 113, fully reformed from Don Juan to dutiful dad? With the arrival of the pups, this group is officially its own pack, and 113 is their alpha male. The insistent pups lick his face, urging him to regurgitate some tasty bits for dinner. Whether the fledgling pack will survive is up in the air. They are still on the fringes of Druid territory, and conflict between the two packs is likely. In any case, the pups are happy to tell the world they're here to stay. But while Yellowstone welcomes the newcomers, Doug Smith is bracing himself for some inevitable goodbyes among the Druids.
42 has been there since the beginning, and 21 came on the scene early. They are the thread through that whole story, and that thread is getting short, and it could end soon. It will be a sad day for me, and it will be a sad day for the story of Yellowstone wolves.
Despite the inevitable losses, Doug wouldn't trade in a day of his role in this epic experiment.
I think the reintroduction of wolves to Yellowstone is one of the scientific opportunities of the century. To be a part of this from the beginning and document how this system will change because of the reintroduction of a top carnivore that belongs here is a huge scientific opportunity that needs to be done.
Not only Yellowstone is being transformed. Nearly half of the wolves now live outside the park, where they are not always welcome. But livestock losses have been less than half of what the park anticipated, and far less than what ranchers had feared. The wolves' place here seems assured. There are now dozens of wolf packs thriving inside and outside Yellowstone National Park. And the reintroduction program here has become a model for saving endangered carnivores the world over. The wild soul of Yellowstone is back.